There's two things you're going to hear about roof coatings. Some are true and some aren't. The term elastomeric is not a technology term. It's a marketing term. So all of these companies up here offer a variety of coatings depending on where you are in the country and where you are in a state. Some of them might be familiar to you. Some of them you might not have heard of, okay? But there's 633 coating manufacturers entered under the CRRC, which is a Cool Roof Rating Council, which is a good thing for us because, quite honestly, I only put up some of the names that are really well known in the industry. You're going against a lot of folks who have a motorboat motor and a 55-gallon drum mixing coatings for all intents and purposes. So from a standpoint of Duro-Last and the service that we provide, the quality of product we provide, the support we provide, that gives you a leg up when you're selling against that type of competitor, right? We can separate ourselves from those other folks, and that's what it's about.
Of that 633, how many of those manufacturers do you think are actually making their own coatings?
I couldn't even venture a guess. Like I said, I mean, I've been parts of the country, Mike, where a guy is making 5,000 gallons a year in his garage and selling it, selling it as he's a contractor, he's making it himself and selling it. But I would say there's probably 20 to 25 major companies manufacturing, okay? And the most prevalent are going to be GAF, and they have Top Coat. They bought Hydrostop and United Coatings a number of years ago. Depending on where you are, you got some foam guys like Lapola, who's out of North Carolina, and they do foam and coatings. Some of the other names I put up there, like a Western Colloid, is huge in the West Coast, and they're starting to come this way. But they're huge in the West Coast. So a lot of it's regional, but Karnak, Henry, those are the names you see. And one of the things we're going to get into in a few minutes, when you go look at Lowe's, Home Depot, or any one of the big box stores, and you look at what's on the shelf in terms of a roof coating, it's not what you're buying. That is not the type of product you're buying. So keep that in your mind when you look at the price of those products. And again, as we go forward, I'm going to explain why some of that pricing is different. But here's the major ways we think of roof coatings, the major technologies. You've got aluminum coatings. Everybody knows what that is, right? And you've got two types of aluminum coating. One is an aluminum flake. So they take the aluminum flakes and they actually suspend it into some type of surfactants and some other materials. And then when everything cures out, you've got literally aluminum on the roof. And the other one is a fibered aluminum, which is a paste type of product, okay? Asphaltic, bitumen-based products, emulsions, different types of flood coats, cutbacks, and things like that. Acrylics are water-based. And most times when you hear the word elastomeric, it's going to be attributed to acrylic. But acrylic, if you hear elastomeric, unless it's a manufacturer being specific about a technology they have, elastomeric is acrylic. Urethanes, they're both single component and multiple component products, right? And I'm sure we've all been familiar with urethanes. Silicones, which is what we're talking about, and then the PMAs, PMMAs. And those are, I can't get involved with the technical terms because I have problems pronouncing polymethyl matriculate, okay? But those are really high technology types of products. We actually have a PMA product. I don't know how many are you familiar with our liquid flashings? Anybody familiar with our liquid flashings? We introduced it last year, okay? And it's a PMA product. It is a good product, and PMAs and PMMAs are very, very good products. They're very hard. They're very durable. They hold up very well to water. They will really stick to just about anything. The biggest downside, two biggest downsides, prep and cost. Okay, they're very expensive. So we're offering it as a flashing solution, so you can use it with the Duro-Last membrane when you've got, an angle coming out of your parapet wall at 45 degrees, and how do I get that sucker watertight? Well, you can use our PMA liquid flashing to do that and incorporate it into your warranty. We're not going to really talk about that today, but it's something I think is important for everybody to be aware of.
Your technics have had some training on that as well, so if you need further information,
And I speak New York, which means I go about 100 words a minute, so if you need me to slow down, just throw something at me, all right? So here's how most people, when we spoke to them about offering coatings at Duro-Last, were it's like, why are you doing that, right? And I think it's important that you, our customers, recognize We just don't jump into something because we want to jump into it. And it really comes from you folks. So 2016, 2017, we were actually looking for coating companies to buy. Actually, 2016, 15. And we sent out surveys to all of our customers, over 2,000. And one of the things was, why shouldn't we do coatings, right? And here's the answers we got. I sell against them every day. It's against my long-term business plan. I'm looking to satisfy my customer for the long term, not to some short-term solution. You're leery of the coatings. It's got a small weather window, right? Not so much that as in your area. Too many weather restrictions. And are our reps knowledgeable about the products? And it's too labor-intensive. All of which is true to a degree. And all of which, when I spoke with Mike, when I speak with Scott, even me, and as I said it out there, coatings are not a miracle in a bucket. And I am not here to tell you go out and sell coatings as a solution for roofing every time it's out. But if you're not aware of when to use it, why to use it, and when not to use it, you're going to take yourselves out of a lot of opportunities. Here's the other thing. So if I were to tell you that the roofing industry from 2018 to the end of 2020 grew 30%, what would you tell me? I'm out of my mind, right? Because we receded as an industry 12% last year in number of square foot installed. From 2019 to 2020, the industry shrank by 12%. Coatings have grown 30% in a 3-year period. 18, 19, 20, the amount of gallons sold is up 30%. It's the fastest growing roofing segment. So again, if we're not doing the right thing for you by coming out with a product that can come into that marketplace, we're not helping our customer base. So that's another reason we did it. And then again, when we were looking at coatings, we wanted to know, what should we do? And you can see the plethora. I mean, it's all the different types of coatings, but 76% of our customers, the Duro-Last customers, told us in 2016 silicone or acrylic. When we first introduced coatings in 2017, we came out with acrylic. Anybody have an idea why? If you look at this chart here, I don't know if I'm looking at it right, I don't have my glasses on. Acrylics represent 32% of the market, of our customer market. Silicones represented 46%. So if you folks were using more silicone, why did we come out with acrylic first? Why do we think? There's a hat in it for an answer. Nobody even wants to get an answer for a hat? Guess? Exactly. It's easier, it's more forgiving, and we needed to make sure that, A, we understood it as a company, our team, you know, the Scott Crowders, so we could introduce it to you. You got to change your thought process. If I asked you, how do you price out a roof? And I said to you, how do you price out the price of the product on the roof? What do you think? How much per square foot, right? When you think of coatings, you don't think of how much per square foot. You start to think of how many gallons per square. Then I have to translate that into my cost, and then I translate that into my cost per square foot. So it's a different mindset and a different thought process, and we wanted to introduce the easiest and the most friendly first.
Why is it acrylic easier than silicone? When you say easy.
Well, because of what we just experienced in terms of curing time, in terms of application. It's just an easier process. If you make a mistake, it's easier to repair and fix. What are roof coatings used for? Most of our customers responded for repairs and maintenance. Okay, so when we came out, we did not want to have a roof coating system for labor and material warranties and for a roof system. And this is still our focus. We want to focus in on repair and maintenance and how do we get that roof either in the dry, add reflectivity, add life extension. And we're going to get more involved with that after lunch. So we have two basic products. We have the DuraShield 10 and the DuraShield Silicone. Who remembers anything about when we introduced coatings in 2017? Anybody here? Nobody was really interested? That's fine too. Good. I don't have to make a statement about something now. So we have these two products. DuraShield 10 is the silicone, the acrylic, I'm sorry, and DuraShield Silicone is the silicone. And we named them that way so we couldn't make a mistake. We couldn't make a mistake. So when we were pulling buckets out of a warehouse to send somebody, we didn't mix them. And you can see there's a different color label.
Which
Depends. Depends on how much you put down. And depends on the conditions. Okay? So here's what we're talking about from acrylics. Now this is important for when you're thinking about estimating and competing. All right? All coatings, just like all PVC membranes, are under what ASTM guideline? Who said 44? Somebody was saying? 4474. Thank you, Mike. Right? That's the PVC ASTM guideline. So every PVC manufacturer has to meet ASTM 4474, which lists, I think, 16 or 17 different tests that every manufacturer, no matter who they are, have to meet with. Why is that done? So Mike and Scott and John, if we're 3 different manufacturers, we can come to you as a customer and say, here's our product, and you have a means of evaluating us against one another in terms of pure performance characteristics that are third party, that nobody can say, hey, I'm 6'3". And you look at me and like, no, you're not. Well, I got a rule that says I'm 6'3". Scott has a rule that says he's 125 pounds, right? So we're all coming from the same place. So that's the ASTM standard for roof coatings for acrylics is 6083. Now, why am I taking a lot of time here? Because there's one key measurement for every roof coating you have to look at when you're going to compare A, B, C, and D, and that's the percent volume of solids. And that test exists for any roof coating. And you'll look at something, it'll say 100% siliconized. Elastomeric, 100%. XYZ this. Percent of weight. And they'll give you all these different things. But the percent volume of solids is what's left on the bone. So after everything dissipates, all of the other materials that get put in there, that's what's left. That's your mill thickness, dry film thickness that's left on the bone. So on acrylics, and this is, again, the easy side of it, the minimum percent volume of solids to meet the D6083 is 50%. Most acrylics will fall between 50 and 55%. High solids acrylics go up to about 60, 65%. If you ever pick up an acrylic product and it's at 70, 75%, don't use it because it won't cure. Or you have to put it down at like a half a gallon a square because the way acrylics cure is through evaporation, and it evaporates from the bottom up. So if you put it down too thick, you get what's called mud cracking, which are basically blisters that open up, and you get a horrible looking roof. So again, that's important. So if you're measuring acrylic or silicone, they might be different technologies or urethane, but you can look at the percent volume of solids and make a comparison to that extent. Biggest key factors for acrylics are reflectivity and initial and age. That's what everybody sells on because you can get real high values on there. And then adhesion and elongation and dirt pickup resistance. You got to be able to stick, it's got to be able to move, and it's got to be able to stay white. Okay? Now, do not use, I would strongly urge you not to use acrylics where you have ponding water. And it doesn't matter whose they are, and I don't care if somebody tells you, I can put down an acrylic and make it be fine in standing water. Yeah, you're putting down more coatings, you're going to put down a fabric in between it, you're basically going to build a membrane on the roof, and that top layer of acrylic is going to be your sacrificial lamb that's going to peel away. You're not really doing the right thing. It's not standing up to the ponding water. You're just putting more stuff down so when it eats away, you have something left. Okay? So and that's the nature of all acrylics because the resins absorb the water even after they're cured and release it. And if you ever walk up on a roof and it's coated and you see something like potato chips all over the place, I can guarantee you that's an acrylic roof that's been sitting in ponding water. The other thing is, as of this year, the IBC has adopted a new standing, which is ASTM D6083 M18, all right? And there's 2 categories for that, one with and without the D522 low temperature flex. And the only reason that's important for you folks here is that was a test that was developed initially by the resin manufacturer who developed acrylic coatings, very smart people. They had to go into every 6083 test, and you really need to have the ability to have your material stand up at minus 15 and bend around a half-inch mandrel in Alabama? I mean, if that happens, your building's going to have other problems besides the roof coating cracking. So, very smart people. This is the resin. We're the only folks that have the resin. We're going to require this test for everybody to pass it. They sold a lot of stuff. But again, for you folks, you don't have to worry about it. Again, there's two standards, one with and without. I don't think you're going to worry about the D522 test here. And the DuraShield 10, we have not developed it for that particular process either. And quite honestly, as we go into it, the biggest reason is cost. Anytime you make something last longer, be better, it costs more money. So, coating industry warranties. This was a question I get all the time. Who here applies coatings and offers a warranty? Material only. Okay. So the names I had up there, let's say talk about GAF, let's talk about Top Coat, let's talk about Gaco. And again, this is not a knock, this is a reality, and I'll tell you, I'll hold my hand up, Duro-Last is not going to be different. They all pretty much say the same thing, that if the roof leaks and it's not the coating that failed, it's the substrate, that's your problem, not ours. Now, what are we putting coatings on? A roof. So if that TPO roof is shattered and you put a coating on it and it leaks because the TPO is further degraded, it's not the coatings manufacturer. And that's for the best warranties out there. That's for labor, materials, warranties, and everything else. So we offer a material-only warranty. Next year, we will probably be offering, I hope, a labor and material warranty. Okay? And that will come in time, and it'll come with a lot of restrictions on it. Go ahead.
To do a certification, or?
Well, there'll be a certification. There'll be a certification process. We're working through some of the nuts and bolts, but my thought process. Everybody knows Duro-Last is a conservative company, right? We don't want to overcommit and not deliver. So one of the things I said, because, and I don't think it's malicious, but if you're not experienced doing this and you make a mistake, it can be an oh crap for everybody. So it's going to be master contractor or better, and then there's going to be a certification process on top of that. All right. So that's where I think we're going to be in 2022. And then there's full system warranties for coatings, which we're not going to get in touch with. And again, I love it. Full system warranty, that means the coating. That doesn't mean your full system, right? And here's my favorite, NDL. What does NDL stand for? Excuse me? No dollar limit. No. What does NDL stand for? Got a hat, Mike? What does NDL stand for? Come on, no dollar limit? Close. No damn liability. That's what I've always said NDL stand for, and especially in the coating industry, when you read them, God's honest truth. I won't tell you the manufacturer publicly, but if you want to come and talk to me, I have the warranty. I'll send it to you. I'm going to give you a 15-year NDL, and here's what it's going to cover. If the roof leaks, you're going to pay for my inspector to come out and inspect it. If I determine that it's the coating problem or the applicator's problem, I have the option, I have the option to either pay for the repair, perform the repair myself, or provide you product, and you repair it. That's no damn liability, right? So basically, you buy a roof from me and I give you an NDL, and it leaks, after you pay me $500 to come out, maybe my travel time from Chicago, and I walk away and say, sorry, sir, nothing you can do. Now, Duro-Last, when we talk about our labor and material warranties, and again, I'm going to be honest about it, we're not going to go out there and tell you we're going to give you a labor and material warranty like we do with our membranes. We're not. We're going to make sure that the roof is installed properly, that you meet the requirements that we have to make that eligible for a labor and material warranty. And there's a lot of work up front. I mean, I've put together the package 2 years ago. That's how long it's taken for us to push it through. You're going to have to photo verification, scans and things like that. core cuts. You're going to have to provide a lot of information. And the reason we're going to do that is ours is a little bit better than everybody else's, but if we're sticking our neck out, we're going to stick it out jointly, all right? And quite honestly, when you start to get to full system and NDL warranties in terms of the competition, you can sell all day long against that with a membrane and come in very, very close, if not cheaper, So they're coming, but again, it's not something that we're really going to kind of push that hard, and there's going to be requirements. So we basically have a material only of 5, 10, and a 15, 20 years on Duro-Shield acrylics, right? And on the silicone, we have 5, 10, 15, and a 20-year material. We will have, when we do the labor and material, we'll probably go 10 and 15 and only do it with silicone.
Is that just more material, more scrim?
More product. So before we go, because I need to keep things simple and stupid for myself, we have cheat sheets here, which I'm going to hand out to everybody. So this is a chart, and basically this is a cheat sheet. We might as well hand them out right now. But basically, what we tried to do is very simply say, okay, how do I quickly look at this and determine how much material I'm going to need, right? And this afternoon, I'm going to show you a little bit, for those of you who haven't seen it, if you go on the portal, we have coatings calculators. It's very simple. You put the square footage in, and your estimate is done, aside from labor. So very simple. What we've done is we take the substrate, right? So if you look at the one side, let's look at the acrylic side, please. We give you the product list, the product number, and the cost. So if you want to place your order from there, you can. The substrate, do you need a primer or not? What type of primer do you need? And then how many gallons for how long of a period of time? Now, if you keep this in your folder and when you're out on the job, it takes you about 3 seconds to figure out what we're going to do here, right? And on the back side is the same information for silicone. So we tried to make this as simple as possible, and really it was as simple as possible for me because I got too much to think about and remember. And I get called all the time, and I have this in my bag, and I just pull it out, and I refer to it all the time because it gets confusing, when you're switching from product to product. There's no charge for our material warranty onlys, all right? So we can go through this slide fairly quickly here because I want to get us to lunch because that's important for me. I don't care about you folks. I'm hungry. All right, so that's basically what you're seeing on the cheat sheet, all right? And what's going to be important is they're segregated, they're broken out by substrate. So if you look at the tabs on the bottom, it'll say BUR modified, single ply, EPDM, PVC, and then it'll talk about metal. Once we get this up, I'm going to show you what we've done for the metal, and when you go outside, the light bulb will come on. How do you measure a metal roof for a roof? All of the flutes and the flanges, right? So if you're doing a coating, you can't go out and say the building's 100 by 100, and I've got 10,000 square feet. You've got to attribute for the profile. And depending on the type of metal, you've got different heights of profile, and that's a lot for everybody to keep in their heads, right? So what we've done is at the bottom of the metal tab is what I call a spread rate. So if it's a corrugated, you just look on the profile, and it'll tell you multiply times 15%, 20%, 30%. So we've even gotten to the point of trying to help you out with that you don't miss that aspect of it. And it happens. I mean, I get called way too often. I mean, it's at least once or twice a year. I'm running out of product. What are you putting in on a metal roof? You told me 1.5 gallons a square. I'm like, did you attribute? Oh no, I didn't use the calculator. Okay.
You see the tab at the bottom there.
Oh, it's there. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. Great. Thank you, Mike. I always need help. So this is the silicone calculator. So if we look at the bottom, we're on the calculator for the metal roof. Here's where I'm talking about with your stretch pounds. So depending on the panel profile you have, you can take that visual, and let's just say it's 15%. and it's not mechanically attached. Let's say it's 10,000 square feet times 15%, and boom, you've got 5, 10, 15, and 20-year options will recalculate it for you.
That is an Excel spreadsheet, so you can download that and save it right to your desktop.
Right, right. So, and again, depending on the substrate, if you're looking at your cheat sheet, right, and you go to a modified, calculator for BUR is modified, you know you're going to need a primer. Right? So then you just enter in here the 16,125. And it calculates everything for you. Yeah. So again, we tried to make it very simple for everybody.
Got a question, John.
Yes, sir.
Can we calculate how many gallons of mineral spirits we're gonna need to clean that machine too?
Now, you gotta talk to the Graco rep about that.
Virgin mineral spirit. Who said that? Who said that? Here's another hat for you. So now the other thing you'll see about this calculator, in case you mess up and you say, okay, what's my part number because I want to place the order?
There you go.
You got your part numbers and the sizes of your receptacles. Okay? Couple things for you. Do not order 55-gallon barrels if you're going to roll coatings. You don't want to move 55-gallon barrels. This is about 11.5 pounds a gallon. So you're looking at moving 600-something pounds at a clip. And you got to open it up. You got to disperse it into smaller containers. It's going to be a mess. You're not going to be very happy with us. Okay? Even though it's not our fault, you still won't be happy with us, which is fine. So just keep in mind, and the other thing is if you are spraying, you might want to go to a 55-gallon, even if you're using the hopper. All right? Now with the silicones, in that video they showed the Monarch 5-to-1 pump. You only need that if you're using a big pump and you're coming right out of the drum. So that for everybody here in this room at this point in time, you're not there yet, except for you might be able to get back there pretty quickly, right? Guys using the 7900 because you're familiar with pumps. So we've tried to keep everything encapsulated into one or two areas that is very simple for you to get at, very easy for you to use. And before we leave today, I mean, I'll give you all my contact information. If you do have any questions, call me. I'm happy to deal with them and answer them. The other thing is that you want to look at too, and after I show you this, we're going to break for lunch because I'm hungry. I don't know how you got this, Mike, but we're going to try to get the...
Which one you want?
I want to go into the
Every grid sheet
installation
bars
guide.
are on that page too.
Go what now?
The installation guide.
Your grid sheet is on that page.
Yeah.
Engineering with specifications.
It's coming up. All right, so you have the full installation guide as well for acrylic and silicone. Now, I'm just going to show you this picture now so you have it in your head a little bit. But we talk about what your cleaning process is, right, on the different substrates. We talk about general conditions of the building and appeal and adhesion kits testing, all right? This is important for you. And this is a visual. We're going to show you, we're going to do this a little bit later. I'm going to try to go out right now and do one and see if I can get it to stick before we go back out. But this is important. If you ever have a doubt as to what you're going to, do an adhesion kit. If you get greater than 2 pounds per inch of pull, you're good, all right? And then we just have to figure out what goes from there. But this very, very highly technical piece of equipment is $19.99 at Walmart. It's called a fish scale. So that's all you need to figure out. And that's it for me for now. We're going to have lunch, and then we're going to hear about solar, and then we're going to talk a little bit about selling coatings. It's become ripped off in a particular year. So if you had $500,000, and I'm really summarizing, if you had a $500,000 roofing project, you spend $500,000 on equipment, you can take both of those items and write them off in the full first year. So you're not depreciating the roofing over 33 years and maybe your equipment over 7 to 10, depending on what you're buying. So that's the difference really that we were talking about there. A couple things real quick. I want to go back into the, now here goes the challenge again. I got to try to figure this out, right?
You got it.
I want to go back into the application instructions here because I think one of the things I wanted to talk with about was prep. So, again, I've been putting down coatings for 26 years in varying ways and manners. And what are the 3 most important things to have a successful coating project? What do you think they are? Huh? Prep. What's the second most important thing?
Prep.
Prep. What's the third most important thing? Prep. How you prepare your substrate is going to be the complete answer to how your project turns out.
And virgin mineral spirits. Give that man a hat.
You can't find that in New York. I'll tell you that offline. But anyway, it's very important. You'll hear anybody in the coating industry from the manufacturing side will tell you the same thing. Clean, dry, sound substrate. But what does that all mean, right? So we participate in, we Duro-Last, participates in RCMA, which is the Roof Coating Manufacturers Association. And I'm sure all of you know NRCA in the room, right? National Roofing Coating Manufacturers Association, Roofing Contractors Association. Now, 3 years ago, Reed Ribble became the president or chairman, whatever it is, of the organization and decided that he thought it'd be a good idea if we started to have certifications from NRCA that you folks could prove your proficiency in different applications. And there were a whole bunch of materials that were pushed out as to, let's get the manufacturers to write training programs, not specific to their product, but specific to the application of that technology. So PVC, or EPDM, or TPO, or built-ups and modifieds and things like that. Coatings was one of them. So this was in 2018 when the list came out, and of, I don't know, 20-something different types of roof systems, coatings was like number 18 on their list to get to. Well, we participated and we sat in the technical committee to write the standards with about 7 or 8 different manufacturers. And we participated in that process, and it was accepted, and it was accepted last year. So we went from 18 to 3 in the span of a year and a half. And it was because what it was is the industry is starting to take hold, and as I said, there's about 20 manufacturers of any real relevance. And pretty much we're the folks who sat there and said, let's not make legal miracles in a budget. So preparation, clean, sound, and dry, what does that mean? What does that mean? That means if you went out and did a recover right now, what would you do if you had 30% wet insulation? Take it off, right? What would you do if you had, out of 50 squares, you had 10 squares of wet? What would you do? Take it out. Same thing for coatings. Okay, now that's written in the NRCA standards. The reason it's important is everybody's playing from the same field. And this is not John Skinner, the Duro-Last roofing salesperson who's responsible for coatings, who's going to go out and say that. Here's a document that comes from the National Roofing Contractors Association. And this was circulated and approved by all of the members of the RCMA, Roof Coating Manufacturers Association. So dry, you have to have a dry substrate. That means if you stick a moisture probe in and you've got 16% moisture and that's the only thing you find, you got to rip everything out? No. But when we get real, let's get real. What does sound mean? What do you think sound means? Let's describe a sound. What does a sound modified bitumen roof look like?
No delamination.
No delamination, right? You're not looking at the reinforcement. You don't have your flashing laps where they have that 3-course application completely gone and the laps are blowing in the wind, right? I mean, it's common sense, but we got to look at it. You know, you don't have alligator and that's 3/8 of an inch deep. And I mean, I won't name the competition, but I went in on the roof where literally we would have had to use 7 or 8 gallons of material just to get to the top layer of the edge of the alligator. I mean, the competitor was coming, oh, we'll do it 3 gallons a square. I'm like, no, we walked away. It was a 900-something square project, walked away. And I figure about another 6 months, they'll call us back and say, what's the right thing to do? And by then, it's gonna be put a Duro-Last roof on it, because you didn't do it right to begin with. So clean, sound, and what does sound mean for TPO? You don't have reinforcement, it's not split open, the seams are well intact, right? Does that mean if you have a fish mouth that you have to rip the whole thing out? No. Okay, so clean, sound, and dry. What's clean? How clean does it have to be? What do we think? Let's ask the coatings man back there. How clean does it have to be? Clean. How do you know if it's clean?
Ain't got no dirt on it.
Give him two. Give him two. Love it, thank you. There's a couple different ways you can test, all right? So, this is a very sophisticated test. And you gotta be very detailed in how you do this. You go to your Ace Hardware store, and you get a 2-inch duck roll tape, and you put the duck roll tape on the substrate, and you peel it up. And if more than 50% of that is covered with dirt, it ain't clean enough. Okay? It's really that simple.
That's what they came up with?
That's a legitimate ASTM test.
Yeah.
That is a legitimate ASTM test. And the reason for it is, when you coat something, what are you sticking to? The surface. If the dirt's on the surface, that's what you're sticking to. If there's grease on the surface, if you go up into a jack-in-the-box and it's full of grease, jack-in-the-box is down here? If it's full of grease, you gotta get the grease off. Okay, it's that simple. And I get questions all the time. How much of it do I have to get off?
All of it.
There you go. So, you know, that's, you know, and we have contractors and customers right now, and I mentioned Jack in the Box because this was very specific to them, and White Castles, right, another one, where they just couldn't get all the grease off. And they knew they weren't going to get the grease off. I said, all right, I mean, that's up to you, but we're not going to warrant it. My suggestion to you is before you take the job, I'll write you a letter saying that this is the best we can do. We'll prime it, we'll put 2 coats down, we'll put a membrane down on it, and we'll put another coat on the top. But if it delaminates, it's still not going to work. But we can try to give a solution, and we'll cover our behinds, and we'll help you to cover your behinds, right? That it's not the right thing to do, but we'll do the best we can to get it as right as we can. And then I always refer back to, and I tell this anytime you do a proposal. We just talked about this yesterday, Mike and I, and Scott. Give a proposal, a real proposal. I saw, we had a customer of ours who was going against a competitor, was $30,000 higher than the competitor. And the quote that he got, because I asked the owner to send it over, black out the name of the company, black out the price, was, we will coat your roof, and here's the number. That was the quote. And he was $30,000 less. And we gave him the RCMA documents, we gave him the NRCA documents, we gave him our installation guide, we gave him a little story about Duro-Last, we gave him full scope of work, and we said, this is what we're gonna do. Go ask him what it's gonna cost him to do this. Take the number, take the name of the company, ask him what it's gonna cost to do this. And when he saw the levels of the stations of the prep, the guy walked away. All right, so, you know, prep is critical. Clean, drown, clean, sound, and dry. All right? And again, as we get further into this, when you talk about technology, we go back to your point earlier, why is it easier? So one of the things that you have with silicone that you don't have with acrylics is permeance, right? Silicone is a lot like permeance, which means water vapor doesn't travel through it as easily. So if you have a wet substrate, and that water's driving up, that silicone's going to delaminate. It's going to blister and delaminate. So you know, there's reasons for this. It's not just because you want to make some more money by having some insulation sold or something like that. It's the right thing to do. And some of this, quite honestly, in terms of knowledge and technology, wasn't realized until a few years ago. You know, because there just wasn't the science put to it as to what was going on and why things were cost. So we have in here metal versus non-metal substrates. We have a couple samples of metal, we're going to show you this. If you have a standing seam metal roof that's already hydrostatically warranted, so no water can get in the building? Do you have to strip in every one of the lap seams? No, right, okay? If you have a corrugated roof and your stitch screws are backing out and you've got gaps in it and somebody's dragged stuff across it and you've got big, bends in it, yeah, you're gonna have to 3/4 that, right? Because we don't want water coming in there. Again, certain parts of the country not as critical, but height of flashing, if you've got to step up onto a flat, if you've got snow load, you're gonna have to 3/4 it. If you don't have snow load, maybe you don't have to do that. You do have to look at all of your fasteners. Every fastener must be inspected. Again, we had this conversation last night. You gotta test every fastener, make sure they're tight. If their holes elongated, if they're out of, if they're out at an angle, take them out and replace them. Because they're gonna leak, no matter how much sealant you put on them. It's just a question of when that building's still gonna move. I was on a job that we did in 2017, where I literally walked up on the guys in the metal roof, and I reached over and I pulled a fastener out with my hand. And, this is after telling me the coatings have a problem because we have blisters, we have this, we have water coming in the building. And we started talking about, oh yeah, I did everything. I literally pulled the first fastener I found out with my fingers. So, again, I keep coming back, it's not a miracle in a bucket. We're not covering it with a membrane that if something's a little off underneath it, it's okay. Right? We got 50 mils of membrane, we're okay. And the membrane is going to move independent of the roof. No, the sealants and the coatings are going to be part of that system. Fasteners have to be looked at. The seams have to be looked at. I've been seeing a lot of our opportunities coming through now. Is anybody familiar with the Butler low slope 24 panel? Right? And you got the straps on the butt joints, right? I had a conversation with an architect that one of our competitors was saying that you don't coat that strap at all. That you leave the strap open. And I said, why? And he says, because the water's supposed to run downhill, and there's little channels in the straps, and it's supposed to run underneath the straps, and it's supposed to go out. And we got pictures, real close-up pictures of the straps, and the metal was rusted underneath because it was in Ohio and it sits with snow. And I said, so what happens when the water comes in because it's rusted? I said, those quote-unquote weep holes don't mean anything. If we coat the surface, we put a sealant over there, everything is going to be monolithic, it's going to go right over the top. That was the better solution, right? So again, it's meant, the metal roofs are meant to move, right? And that strap is there not to have it to move, but to lock those 2 panels in place. The thing that you do have to be careful about when you're talking about prep is take a look at the roof in the morning after a good hot day. Because you'll see water weeping out on all your plates. And what that happens is, as your dew comes in, it gets sucked up a little bit, but it's not behind that gasket, and it will release. So a lot of times we've had people go out first thing in the morning and start to do that and prep that, do that coating. They come back a couple hours later, hey, I got water coming out, what's going on? So you just got to be aware of that can happen. It's not a big deal. You just might have to apply a little bit more coating if it hasn't cured out yet. All right. Single ply roofs. We're not going to coat TPO with anything but silicone, and we're going to use a primer, TPO primer, specific TPO primer. But TPO, PVC, and mod bits, asphaltic type roof systems, you're going to see in our specs and our installation guidelines, we tell you to repair with the same like-kind materials, right? What you're going to have a difficulty finding is how do I stick to that same like material when it's new. Forget TPO. You're not going to stick to it if it's new. PVC is going to be real tough. And asphaltic modified types of products, you got to wait 45 days for it to cure out before you can apply any coatings to it. Anyways, not ours, all right? So what I always recommend, and it goes back to condition of the roof. If you really got to start cutting out large areas of the roof, a coating project versus going through a Duro-Last layover is probably not the best option, right? And that makes it easier for you to justify to your customer, I can coat it, here's your cost, or I can go with a Duro-Last layover, and here's your cost, right? Because you're going to go in with the proper prep, and you're going to tell them that right up front. This is what I have to do to take care of your roof. So if you don't have a lot of major repairs, but you still got to do some work on the roof, it's a little tired, it's very warm. you're gonna see when we go out and start playing with some of the mastics and sealing. It's a great repair material. You can use the silicone material over any substrate. Any substrate, okay? So if you're getting repairs, and I see you guys are, maintenance and repair, right? How many buckets of materials do you have on different types of materials do you have on your truck? You got an asphaltic mastic, you got splice wash, you got an adhesive, you got TPO, well, tape, right? Pressure sensitive tape, and that's another argument I'll have with other people about thermoplastic versus thermosets. You've got PVC, you've got welders. You can literally take our sealant and with a TPO primer, cover any substrate. You can go over modifieds with it and use it as a repair mastic. You don't need to prime it. Primer's a bleed blocker. Nobody's going to care if your patches get grazed in 5 years, right? But it will adhere and it'll bond. You can go over PVC, you can go over EPDM, and it'll hold things up. So again, if you're looking at doing the coatings, that's why we have these repair products. So you can use them. They're compatible with the acrylic on the mastics, and the sealants are compatible with the silicone. You don't have to wait an extended period of time and worry about it on with adhesion. And that's important to recognize as we're going forward. Any questions? Any other questions about prep and things of that nature?
Rust
Russ.
on metal.
Metal roofs. If it's not scaling, just hit it with the pressure washer, you'll be fine. Get on any loose scale off, and then you're good to go. You don't have to get down to bare clean metal, all right? Obviously, you want to make sure that some of those rusted pits are not holes through the metal. If you've got holes in the metal, put a piece of sheet metal over the top, all right? But yeah, rust is important, and that, well, we can get involved in a little bit of application now. So if you pick up your cheat sheet real quick, and you get me, I'm going to mostly talk about using, if anybody calls me up, most of the time I'm going to talk about using silicone. And the reason for that is pretty simple. I don't have to think as much, but more importantly, you get better coverage rates, and when you start to look at your costs, you're going to see it becomes a less costly product to use. So if you look at the silicone, what is our cost per gallon of silicone coating? Look at the 1 gallon bucket and see how much it costs. $42. Flip it over, what's that? Flip it over and look at the acrylic. What's the cost of a gallon of acrylic? The Duro-Shield 10. 24.
I'm not seeing any prices.
They don't have the pricing on here? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I gotta yell at somebody. I had pricing on here for you guys. See, that's somebody in the office. That's a good test. I guess I don't get a hat.
Your mouth has to do.
You can get a TV.
So, okay, there you go. So the cost per gallon for silicone is $42, and the cost for an acrylic is $24, which is the less expensive product to use. Silicone. Why?
Goes further.
Goes further. So if I want to get, and look, now you can look at your cheat sheets. Let's just stay with five years application. If we're looking at silicone, I need to put down 1 gallon a square. That is every gallon of coating, no matter whose it is, no matter what technology it is. Doesn't matter. Every gallon of coating that you apply evenly over 100 square feet is 16 wet mils. Every one of them. Okay? Now what you do is, remember what I said about the volume of solids? You multiply your volume of solids times that 16 if it's a gallon. So if it's an acrylic and we're at 50%, we have how much dry film thickness? 50% of 16 is? Great. We're 96% at our silicone. So that translates 16 to 15. I won't make you do that. So if I'm going to put down on a 5-year application, I put down 1.5 gallons of the acrylic, I'm putting down 12 dry mils. 1.5 gallons, 24 times 1.5 is 36.
Yeah.
$42 for my silicone, acrylic's cheaper, right? But now I start to go into 10 years. Okay? If I want a 10-year application, 3 gallons for the acrylic times 24 is 72. 1.5 gallons for the silicone, 42 times 1.5, 63. And guess what? I'm doing the acrylic in 2 coats. I'm doing the silicone in 1. So not only am I picking up pricing in terms of product,
Labor.
but my labor rate. Now again, think about that in a competitive environment. If you're going in and somebody's saying they're going to put down this elastomeric, you say, you know, I can do that for you, sir, man. I can make that work for you. We can do that for you. But let me tell you, I think I have a better product that I can apply for a better price and give you a better solution. And my feeling, and I've said this about our custom fabricated accessories when I was talking with folks who did a lot of roll goods. I was region manager before this job for Duro-Last. And I would sit down with guys I knew for years who did a lot of roll goods, and it's like, oh, it's too long. It's this, and like, how much does it cost you to put a curb in? You're going with your man out there, you're going at $80 an hour loaded. And you're an hour and 15 minutes per curb on the roof. I can cut them down to 25 minutes. How much money did you just pick up? Well, a lot, but I make money on my labor. I said, I didn't tell you to give it all back to the customer. Right? I don't say give it all away, but if you can do it 1 coat versus 2, and you save the guy 25% of that cost, you just picked up more margin. Better product, better solution, better price. It's a hard thing to beat, right? So again, when we start to look at when to use things, you're going to hear me mostly steer you to silicone. When I'm not, it's typically we're going to be looking at a 15-year application. And depending on who you are and the slope and everything, we still might go there. 15-year application, 10-year application on bare metal. Because now with silicone, you're going to have to use a primer, then you're going to have to go with a lot of coats, a lot more material. So your cost differential might not be as great for the product side of it, as well as now you're doing 2 steps and 2 steps. So you might have a wash there. But again, if you're in a competitive environment, that might be something where you offer both, right? If coatings is the only option, offer both.
And the calculator makes this really easy.
Calculator's right there for you. Yep, all your materials are spelled out for you.
Okay, so let
We
me,
don't wanna do 15-year coatings anyway, we won't put a new roof on for that, so.
Scott, I agree with you. Go ahead, Phil.
So 5-year to 5-year, acrylic does come in cheaper.
Yes.
Like, what are we talking about? Like, it doesn't seem like it'd be that much though, even.
You're talking about 36 cents versus 42
Okay.
a square foot. right?
So about 6 cents. And
About
then,
6, 7 cents
and
a
then
square
on the 10-year, your labor to install the silicone is basically the exact same as the 5-year. So you can make a little bit more money, give it to them, a little bit cheaper, kind of split the difference. They get a better roof.
Yep, and quite honestly, when you become proficient, your labor to do the acrylic or silicone should be no different.
Yeah.
No different.
And,
In terms of an applied rate, right? So you should be able to put down the same number of squares with either product. And again, I'm happy to talk with anybody about how you cost out a job inclusive of labor. I don't know your labor rates, and I'm going to show you a slide that we have some numbers on. I don't know your particular labor rates, and again, I don't want to pry into that when you get on the phone. So what I typically talk about is, here's how much you should be able to apply in a day per person, right? You figure out your man hours you need and what your labor rate is, and you get after it, you know. And I've had folks say, well, you're nuts, that's way too high. You know, you got a 10,000 square foot roof. How much time do you have for cleaning? I have 4 guys for 2 days. I'm like, whoa, that's 2 guys a day. You got a pressure washer up there, 10,000 square feet. You got 1 guy helping with the moving the machine, the other guy on the wand. That's 2 guys 1 day. I mean, come on, how long does it take to wash off a roof? Right? And so I'll have that discussion with you. You might say, hey, listen, I know my, you know your guys, I don't, right? And that you know your expected labor rate. I had another guy said, I'm expecting them to roll out 3 squares a day per person. And I said to him, okay. I said, do you understand what that is? He says, yeah. I said, now think about this. Think about this. How big is your living room? Right? How big is your living room? If you were painting your living room, would it take you a day to do it? You know, and that go back to easier. We gotta change our thought process a little bit about how we look at some things too, right? And we have to kind of stretch a little bit to ensure that we're reaching a production level that's gonna be comparable to people who are doing this. And the gentleman that's back there that sprays, I can tell you that I have been on a roof, like I said, they had a rack truck, and this wasn't a roof. When I was selling for Tremco, I mean, these guys were spraying two guns, two hoses, and spraying thousands of squares a week. Thousands of squares a week with 4 guys. They were just killing it, right? And not so much here, but you got out in California, what do you think a fully priced job is at on 1.5 gallons of silicone and primer on 500 squares or more? Sell price to the customer.
$4.
Anybody else? Try $2. You get over 1,000 squares, it's going down to $1.80, $1.70. And they're making 40% margin. But this is what they do every day, all day long. Right? And they're going. So when we start to talk about, might as well jump into it. We start to talk about labor rates. It's not like, you're up there rolling around mid-range. Is this me, you, Scott? Is this me, you? Couldn't recognize me.
Oops, I'm sorry.
No.
That's the challenge. Everybody's strapped for people as it is. We don't have a crew dedicated to cookies.
Don't worry, they're all coming over the line now.
So we pull them.
They're all about 8 to 10 years old, too.
Yes, there are 4 guys from from single ply jobs, go
Right.
out and handle our coatings.
Right.
So I guess it's the chicken and the egg, how proficient are we gonna be until we get.
And your situation's different, Scott, because you have the spray room. If I were you, I would take 2 guys on my single ply crew who were probably at that, they're the next man level,
Yeah.
right? And I'd train them on the gun. And those guys would be pulled off every time I have. And then I would give the least guy on my crew, pick up a day labor or something like that. He's pouring buckets into the hopper. That's the way I would do it. I mean, so I was talking with a couple of you about when I first started doing the coatings, and I still do it today, marking off squares on the roof. And it's amazing, and I know we got a lot of production guys in here, and I'm not knocking you guys, because God, I love you, man. I would never say anything bad about you, because you guys do hard work.
10 biggest rock we get.
White Snake's got to be in there, right?
Could be worse.
Where we at here, Scott?
Please report.
I'm looking for the presentations today.
Go back down to the little.
Everything there? That's in harmony.
Training.
Training center, this one, okay. Is that the one? Or the one we did? Sorry about this, Ben, gents.
We're roofers.
Sign in.
Yeah, that's right.
So, again, what I would do, and again, I think it's good practice. If you went out there and marked off squares, and this is what we expect to get done this day. And it's amazing, you do that a couple times. Number one, from an application of product, like I said, I would mark off 5 to 6 squares and put a bucket every 3 squares and say, this is how much goes in these 3, and this is how much goes over here. But the foreman I would work with, what do you expect from these guys a day? Put 2 or 3 more squares down, right? And say, guys, this is what we got to get done. It's amazing. People get there. It really is. And you make them stretch a little bit, right? So, those are the sorts of things that, boy, we really screwed
We
this
had
up.
something, we have an unrelated question.
Yeah, sure.
What about insurance claims? Pretty much the same.
What do you mean an insurance company?
We have.
Oh, man, you're taking away my presentation.
Take that hat back.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that in a second. Yeah, I mean, so, well, I'll start talking and we can breeze through some of these slides because it's going to be pertinent anyway. There's really kind of three things I look at in terms of sales opportunities, right? Okay, from a coating standpoint. One is to maintain the roof. So I want to add reflectivity, keep life going, whatever, but really about maintaining the roof. Right, it's 10, 15 years old. The owner's really not, half these guys don't know if they have a warranty if it's sitting in their lap.
Is it this one? Mobile right one?
Yes, that's the one, right? Yeah, that's it, thank you. So you've got, here we go. Well, let me just show you where we are from last year. Okay, 2019, 2020, we doubled our business. Remember what I said before? Coatings grew 30% in the last 3 years. We doubled our business last year. Most of that was from folks converting their old coating business to ours. But half of it, of the 175 contractors that used us last year, half of you guys got into coatings for the first time. Not really had applied coatings before. So it's viable, right? We applied over 2.5 million square feet of coating. And this is going to go to your point here. What was your name, I'm sorry?
Floyd.
Floyd, this is going to go to your point. So when offered, extend the life of the roof, hail damage mitigation, right? Provide a good, better, best solution, and the customer wants a coating, what I said earlier. The customer's just sold on it. So here's a picture of a 20-year-old Duro-Last roof, 40 mil, in Florida, condo. We looked at it in 2019. We wanted to replace it. It was 20 years old then. Okay? Wanted to replace it. 40 mils in Florida, it's a pretty tough environment, right? Right on the coast. They didn't have the money. All right, we'll coat it. We'll give you 5 years. Develop a budget. Okay? Now, let me put on my 10 years ago hat. And people have heard me say this, and I'll say it 1,000 times more. If I was 10 years younger, I wouldn't be up here. I'd be sitting there. I'd have that 675, and I'd be knocking on every door saying, hey, I can coach your roof. Okay? I would go into this environment right here. One of my customers, and we were talking earlier about how do you stay in touch with your customers and means to stay in touch with your customers. I'd say to them, sir, you got an 18-year-old roof up here. It's doing pretty good. It's doing pretty good, but it's starting to go. And we got to start thinking about replacing it. So here's what I'm willing to do for you. I'm willing to come in and coat this roof and give you 5 years more life while we prepare our budget. But because I value you as a customer and your loyalty, here's what I'm willing to do. In years 1 and 2, if you replace that roof, I'll give you 30 cents off a square foot of that new roof with Duro-Last. In year 3, if you do it, I'll give you 25. In year 4, 20. In year 5, I'll give you 15%. 15 cents a square foot. Now, I'm from New York, so I just put all that in the back end of my new roof. Okay? But,
Yeah. That's not a New York thing.
well, okay. So, but what does that do? You can say, listen, you know what? It's worth the 20 cents, right? But think about this. Month 11, you should have somebody in your office on the phone with that person saying, listen, no problem, we're going to come out and look at the roof, make sure everything's okay. But remember what we told you we were going to do for you. You stay in touch with them. I don't know about you folks, but anytime I can get something back, if a competitor comes over, the first thing I'm going to say is, give me a price, I want to see 30 cents off a square foot. Right? So you're keeping the competition at bay. And another benefit I see, I get 2 bites of that same apple. I get 2 jobs in 5 years of that building that the guy would have said, sorry, no. I never thought about offering the coatings. And put your hands up here, because I know I can put both my hands up and jump up and down. How many times have you gone back to a building owner when they said, talk to me 4 or 5 months, 6 months, a year from now? You got back to that building owner, he says, I just did it 2 months ago. I had the money, a guy came by. Happened to anybody here besides me?
Yeah.
Right? So again, you got that hook. Use it. It's your customer. And you're doing the right thing for them. You're stopping the aging, right? And if the person buys another 5 years, I used to do this at Tremco when I sold maintenance, and that's how I got into coatings. When I went out and did a service call, I looked and inspected a roof, and we had, $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 worth of repairs. I'd go down to the building owner, I'd say, you know what the cost of avoiding this repair is? He says, no. Let's say it's a 10,000 square foot roof. I said, if you avoid repairing this roof today, it's gonna cost you $250,000. What? Well, let's think about this. This $2,500 repair today is stopping the water from getting in your building, right? In 2 years from now, that water's not stopped, you got a concrete deck, so you're not really seeing it. You're gonna have 25, 30% of your insulation wet. Guess what happens with the roof that walks in the door then? You're tearing this whole thing off. I'm at $25 a square foot to tear this thing off and put back a new roof. That's a $250,000 cost for not making a $2,500 repair. Does that make sense, sir? Yes, it does. So now my contractor go out and start making the repairs. Go out with a bucket of coating. Go out with a heat gun. Shoot the EPDM or modified roof. Put down a 1 square, 2 square foot of coating. Shoot that. Come back with me with a price. Back then, a long time ago, it was $1.25. We used to go back for coatings. Sir, I can coat your 10,000 square foot roof for $1.25 a square foot, $12,500. We'll stop the aging process right now. We'll get the heat off the building. Look at the pictures of this temperature differential. What do you want to do? We were closing about 70%. I sold $200,000 of coating just doing that. So again, there's ways that you can use this to advance your business, right? And that's by roof life extension. Hail damage mitigation. Scott, I know you listened to this proposal presentation a little bit before, but you heard this story, and this is not a story, this is the truth. I get a call from Mike's counterpart in Texas, Robert Gardner. We just had a hail strike come through. We got a 2,000 square mall that got hit. Now, I've been doing this with Duro-Last for 3-4 years, and I can tell you I've traveled all over the country. And right now, hail mitigation, they pay between $2.15 and $2.50 to get you in the dry. Coatings fall underneath that category. One coat application of silicone should cost you no more installed than 90 cents a square foot. $2.15 is a pretty decent margin, right? Now you gotta have the hail strike first, but. So, he calls up 2,000 squares. We got in 200 buckets that next day. We got him 2,000 gallons in 3 days. He coated, I don't know how many squares he actually coated, he didn't coat all of them. And then, while he was coating it, he was putting his proposal together to put in the Duro-Last roof. So you can go down very quickly, you get in the dry, solve the problem, and now you're the first one there, solving the customer's problem, and you're coming back with the adjuster to replace that roof with your Duro-Last membrane. Great, great application. And again, 2 bites of the same apple. Now the nice thing when we're talking about hail mitigation, and you folks have to leave this up to your own judgment, right? How long is this gonna wait before I can put the roof on? In the case in Texas, it was about maybe 60 days before they started roofing. So it was like, let's not worry about ponding water, let's just get the roof coated, go down and dirty. No, we're not gonna go in there with a pressure washer and wash everything, because all we're gonna do is spit water into the building, right? But, boom, right away, turn it around. We do have we have inventory all over the place. As a matter of fact, Mike heard a little bit of this conversation on Monday. We're currently, because there are some shortages across the industry in a lot of different products, right? And we just got hit with notification last week or the week before of some raw material shortages that are gonna come through with coatings. We started stocking up. So every one of our plants has coatings. You come from Jackson?
Or sidewalk.
So there's plenty in both those locations, all right? And again, this gentleman needed 2,000 gallons. I think it was a Thursday, we had him on Monday. Texas.
So would you have to get the monies pre-approved from the insurance before you did it, or would that be part of mitigating the damages that the customer's required to do?
Typically what the insurance companies, what I've experienced in talking with our customers, what they do is they give them the approval to go ahead. Right, right. And that's almost like an immediate thing. They come out, they adjust it, yeah, it's a strike.
Temporary repair.
It's a strike, it's a temporary repair, they already have their numbers in there, it's between 215 and 250, depending on where you are in the country.
250.
That's good
215.
money all day long.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not a question that you're going out there and fighting with the adjuster, hey, this is what I did. Once they say, yeah, it's a strike and it's damaged and it falls underneath it, they're just gonna tell you, go ahead and approve it.
What's the maximum pitch? That looks like a steep roof.
That's a metal roof. You can do any type of pitch. You can go vertical. Yeah. Now again, hold on. So you're talking about liquids, and who was it I told the story about my experience with everything being on the deck? Was it you? We were talking earlier, right? My first experience with coatings. I'm at Duro-Last, and the gentleman is still there, the product manager, great guy, Tom Dillon. I'm sorry, Trenco, Tom Dillon, great guy. Comes out with high build and everything else, and he's all pumped up, and I go through the training, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna try this stuff, right? And I put it on my flashings, we're in a medical center, it's going up a high wall. Boy, it looked beautiful, all the modified was white, everybody was, oh, it looked great. And I went home that night, I was so pumped up, I got a call from the contractor the next morning, he says, you know, we got a problem. I said, what? He says, everything that we put on the walls yesterday? I said, yeah. He says, it's all lying on the deck. Goes back to the guys in the white coat, right? Great product, high solids. So the answer, the reason I tell that story is, as you're going on the slope, you've got to concern yourself with volume of solids. So you don't want to go steep slope with a silicone at 96% volume of solids, because you'll start to slide. It'll move. Same thing with walls, right? That doesn't mean you can't use silicone. That means you cut down the amount of gallons per square. So in a vertical application, I usually say go half a gallon a square and put 2 coats on it. So, you know, if you got a 50-foot wall, start here, go down, come back to the other side, go back. A little bit more labor, but you can still coat it.
And okay, what do you determine vertical? Anything over a 1 pitch or?
No. I would say you're gonna start to have some issues with movement. And see, so much of coatings has got to do with the environment you're applying. If you get a day where it's 75, 80 degrees, 35% of vapor humidity, you could probably go up to 4, 5, and 12. My rule of thumb is usually about 3, 4, and 12. I usually kind of use that because I got to worry about everybody in the country, right? But that's where I would go. And again, that's at a gallon and a half a square. If you're talking about 2 gallons a square, no. Then we have to drop the slope. Okay? But again, this is just to demonstrate some hail, and you can do it on metal roofs for sure. We did a couple in Texas, 2018, 2019. Okay. How many here have done flute fill over metal roof, right? Great application for us, right? How many here have lost a project to coating for flute fill, right? Okay. So, you got a metal R panel. They want a 10 to 15 year solution, and it's a competitive environment. This is not your customer you've been working with all the time, doesn't call anybody else, says, hey, Philip, just give it to me, whatever it is, I know you're gonna take care of it. Doesn't happen that much anymore, but let's say it did. So what are we looking at? Now, I like what Scott said the other day. He doesn't call it good, better, best, he calls it silver, gold, platinum, okay? Whatever you wanna term it, or just say, hey, here's 3 options for you. It's less than 2 and 12, so we're going to use the silicone. Greater than 2 and 12, I would go with the acrylic. Duro-Last metal retro R panel. Does everybody see one of those? All right, great product. Love that product. Did a couple roofs with them, and then the Duro-Last metal retrofit. So, here's your installed cost. Silicone, normal prep work, mechanically attached roof, normal prep work, not crazy. You should be at 3 1/4 to 4 1/4. Your cost for the R panel is 4 1/4 to 5 1/4 installed, and then installed cost for a membrane, $450 to $550, depends on flute fill thickness and what type of insulation you're using. Those numbers are kind of a meld from around the country, but the range between is pretty accurate. You're talking about anywhere between 50 cents to $1 a square foot differential. So, anytime somebody comes to you or you go to a customer and they say, I want a 20-year solution and they're talking about coatings, the first thing I would say is, I can do that for you. I can offer that to you. But let me offer an alternative. Because if you start to talk about 15 and 20-year solutions, especially 20 years, anybody's product, you're going to be more expensive with a coating than you are with a membrane application, metal or anything else, unless you can't go with a retrofit. If you got to rip off, I mean, if it's 2 roofs under and you got a coating as your quote-unquote 3rd roof, that's different. But when you start to talk about these numbers here, I mean, it's an easy selling situation for you, even if it's less than a 15-year application. It's an easy selling situation for you to turn around and say to the building owner, listen, I can do a coating. And here's the features and benefits of a coating. It's lightweight, well, so is the food fill. It's gonna give you reflectivity, so is my membrane. It's gonna go down monolithically, so is my membrane. You're not gonna have a lot of screws coming through. Okay, that's something we have to overcome, right? And I feel really confident for 10 years. Really confident for 10 years. Well, I can give you a membrane for 20. So the question becomes, how do you make that transition again? If they're looking for that coating, yeah, let me alter you an alternate. The difference between going from the good to the best is $1.25 on the low side, right?
And $1.25 on the high side.
But it's about $1.25. 10,000 square foot building. I mean, I would always start with, before we get to the coatings, let me tell you about our Duro-Last membrane and why I think this is better for you. You get R factor, you get a membrane that's going to give you 20-year life, right? You get wind uplift. You're not dealing with the movement of your panel and how that's going to be affecting whatever on top of it. And you know what? I can do the coating, and here's the only benefit different from the membrane is I'm not going to stick screws in it. Now here's the downsides of the coating. You know, if the fasteners start to move and back out of that metal, because that metal's still going to expand and contract as you go through your heat exchanges, you know, you might have a leak. That's not going to be covered. If, you know, you get a hail strike, yeah, it might be impacted on the membrane. It'll definitely be impacted here because it's going to go onto the roof. You know, if you've got a gap in some of your joints, they're going to open up over time. That is not going to span it unless you 3-course it. You 3-course it, you're going to be onto that other side. So that is a great, great, great selling opportunity. Now, if the guy's got a pole barn and he's only, you know, got his cows going in there 3 times a year, they're going to take the coating. But you got to look at the opportunity. If it's a legitimate business, it's going to work.
Can I add to this?
Go ahead, Scott.
I really want to stress this option. Again, I don't like to say the good, better, best. I like to say that silver, gold, and platinum. Nobody wants to win a bronze medal. Silver's all right, but bronze sucks. So get away from the good part. But there's a lot of psychological stuff that goes with this. There's a certain group of people, they're going to buy the best no matter what. If I go to home, wherever I go to buy a tool, you put a Craftsman, a Ryobi, and a Milwaukee, I'm going to buy a Milwaukee. I want more expensive, better quality. That's just how some people are. They're going to spend that money. If you give them 2 options, majority of the time they're going to pick the cheapest option. That's just how people are. You give them 3 options, and not only 3 options, but if you just put this best or platinum just a little above this middle option, they're going to say, well, for just a little bit more, I can go ahead and get the best. So, and all that crap it's mind stuff. It's all in the mind, but you'd be surprised how much this will increase your sales and the dollars to put in your pocket by taking the extra time to offer 3 different options instead of just the 2 or the 1. Most people just offer 1. You're missing out. You're missing out on a lot of money by not doing this. So please take this in consideration.
And the other thing is you'll always, you know, I've been in sales way too long in my life. I won't say how long because I'm probably in sales longer than a good number of you are of age. But one of the things I learned a long, long time ago, and I constantly have to remind myself, always ask the customer what else are they looking at? Who else are they looking at? What other options are they exploring? I can't tell you how many times I forgot that and I walked in and I got blindsided. And just forgetting that one simple question, I lost the deal. Because had I known that, I didn't have to know my numbers. I would have shifted my whole presentation to demonstrate my benefit over that other organization. Not to say this is bad, but let me talk about what works for us. And before I got into roofing, I sold hospital equipment, surgical equipment, surgical lights and things like that. And they would call us in, 3 major manufacturers, you'd sit in the lobby, and then you'd go into a conference room, and all 3 of us were sitting there, and depending on who I followed, I knew how I was going to present. Because I know what they were going to emphasize, and one guy especially was always going to just throw rocks at whoever was after him. Knew that. And that was like the easiest home run in the world, because you'd walk in there and say, okay, you heard about all the bad stuff about my product, let me tell you about my benefits. And all I would do is talk about light transparency, color, this, that, and everything else, and skin depth and tone and things. And all the docs are like, and the guy never said a word about it. And those are the questions they wanted answered. So when we're doing this, it's no different. And that was my training, right? That was great training. No different, no different. What are you exploring? What other options are you looking at? Well, geez, you know, I had this guy coming off of me a coat. Okay, right? Now you know. You can and come in and say, listen, I can offer that to you. And it's a solution. Do I think it's the right one for your building? No. Is it the best solution for your building? You have to make that determination.
I think that puts you in a position of maybe not authority, but that shows that building owner, you've really evaluated that building and you know what's in their best interest. Even though you know that the coating's not the best option, you become the authority because you've offered that. You do not open the door for somebody else to say, yeah, well,
Right.
you know, this guy offered me a coating, but why didn't you say that in the first one? You own that job already.
So here's what it looks like. There's a coated roof, here's a metal retro R panel, and here's the creme de la creme, right? So, you know, and again, Scott will share this. I'm happy to have Scott share this presentation with you. If you want to pull out these photos and use them in your presentation, use them. We give you this information to set you apart from your competitors, okay? We don't hide anything from you. Oh, okay. I'm boring you. All right, so everybody know who this is? I know we're a little bit south. Wayne Gretzky, the great one. You know this one, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So always ask that question. Always, always, always. Because if you don't know, man, it hurts. And I'll relate another story to you. So I was looking, my house is built in the early 1900s. 3-story, old house. We needed windows, siding, and a roof. And at the time I was the regional manager for another company, I also needed a salesperson. So I said, great, I'll call in a bunch of companies and have them come in and present to me. Maybe I'll find a salesperson, right? So everybody, I had 6 or 7 people come in. 6 or 7 people come in. And, you know, it was pretty funny because it went from everything, you know, they asked, so how much is your budget? What do you want to do? When do you want to do it? And 6, 7 people came in, and the numbers went from like, I mean, I think it was like 20,000 to 75,000. You know, and these are in-home salespeople, so your wife has to be there for us to make this presentation. And I go, okay, fine. Every one of them missed the most critical question, in my opinion. Because everyone was telling me about all the technical stuff and how they're going to do this, and ventilation, and, you know, the quality of the shingles and the underlayment and this and that and everything else. And I was like, okay. And at the last guy, I said to him, I said, you know what? Good, nice young guy, did a great job presenting, had great materials. I said, you made one big mistake. I said, what's that? I said, you didn't ask me what I did for a living. That's important. What does the customer know about what you want to do? And I don't mean because, but if you're going to sell me roofing and I'm a roofer, you should know that, right? If I'm going in to have surgery, I want to talk to a surgeon. And if I'm talking to a surgeon and I'm telling him how to do the job and he's sitting there saying, you don't know what you're talking about, kind of dumb to try. So again, Ask the questions. I mean, I do this when I make my presentations. I'll get as rudimentary or as advanced as you want. If I'm gonna start at the bottom. If it's too slow for you, tell me. I'm not trying to be insulting, I'm not trying to be rude, but I don't know what you don't know, so I'm gonna start at the bottom and you tell me when I need to move. And it's the same thing when I talk to owners. Mike said about putting power in consultative sales. I have never sold a roof product in my life. I have sold a solution to the building owner. I've talked to them about their process. I've talked to them about what their objectives are. I mentioned to Mike, I sold to the VA system in New York City. It was visiting 3, New York and New Jersey. I had 120-something buildings. And I sat down with the guy, he says, this is what I want. I said, no, that's not what I'm gonna do, and we can't do business. And after him screaming at me, cursing at me for half an hour, we sat down and I said, look, here's the deal. I do what I do because, and I'm telling you what I'm telling you because I don't want you to call me at 2 o'clock in the morning screaming at me. Because you will, if I do what you tell me to do, all right? I'm here to solve your problem. I know what it's gonna take to get the building watertight, what materials to use, how to do it. I also know how your purchasing functions. I know how you are logistically. I know the security clearance we need to go through to get in the building. Right? So he didn't care about the roofing at that point in time. It's like, oh man, you're taking all this other headache away from me, right? No different here. You gotta ask the question. If you don't know that they're looking at coatings and you go without and don't have it, you're not there. So here's 3 of the largest jobs we did last year. The one on the left, they wanted a Duro-Last roof. So they thought. We came in, we said, okay, here's our Duro-Last roof. And they said, thank you very much. And as we're walking out the door, the rep who handled that particular account, was a national account guy for us, very good, sharp guy, said, can I ask before we leave who else you're looking at? And he rattled off 2 coatings companies. So he said, well, how does that compare to what we want to offer you? And he said, well, you're not competitive, and quite frankly, we want coatings. 3,000 square roof, we coated. Okay? So they didn't tell us they wanted coatings, they wanted to talk to Duro-Last. When we didn't talk about coatings, they didn't say, hey, do you have a coating? I had contractors who had, at that time it was called a 733 Graco pump that we sprayed the vermastic in, the white to black odorless adhesive. We had other guys who, with a different pump for their aluminum and then a different pump for the acrylic. It was an investment in equipment, but they didn't have any screw-ups. They didn't rebuy product and rebuy materials. And you will not buy the pump without a hopper. Thank you. Okay, so contractor portal, we went through that, right? Under the sales tab, coatings calculator, I would suggest you all download it. Engineering tab, the installation guide, maintenance guide on the marketing tab, which we're going to bring up now. Can we go back in the portal, Scott, on the marketing, the storefront? I want to show you some literature and some other things we have.
We're done with this one?
Yes, yes, I think. I think the other one was, the next one was just my, questions. We have postcards, that's the word I'm looking for, getting old. We have postcards and storm and different types of literature for storm mitigation if you want to send it out for specific for coatings as well. So we can do all of that, and you can use your AMP up money for any of that materials.
Does everybody understand what remember amped up, the money earned to get back from buying our products? That this does apply to
Yep.
amped up.
Go ahead, Tom.
So, didn't want to make that clear. If you're gonna buy coatings, you might as well get something out of it, so you're getting money, you're getting stuff back with us when you purchase our coatings. And it's a good product.
I think they said something about a limited time offer. If you buy 1 hopper, by the end of the season, you get another hopper at the same price. That's pretty good. But you have to get word into those offers.
We're done. I just wanted to show these.
That's what I want to sell, virgin minerals.
You got some like the orange tinge.
Dive, dive, dive. So here's the door shield brochure. Okay, Scott, I think we've got one handed out to all of you there. Then we have one on the Graco spray pumps. And then we have some of the postcards I just found in here. There we go, thank you. You read much faster than I do. So we have a couple of them here, like a drop in the bucket. And a couple other postcards there that you can utilize. All of this is on the storefront. All of it's available to you. We have some wet bill gauges up here before we go, but we're going to go outside, just play with some of the mastics. I want to show you how to do an adhesion test, because I get a lot of calls and questions about that. It's very simple. I'm going to show you an adhesion test. And basically what he did is started peeling it back. So you have 3 methods of failure for adhesion, right? You have cohesive, adhesive, and an oh shit. All right? Adhesive means that you've got some of the material still left as you peel this up. Cohesive means everything comes off. And really, if you've got cohesive failure, it's probably not a good thing to be doing. So I got to find the fish scale that was over there before. Oh, there it is, great. So basically what you want to do, and I kind of did this when we finished lunch, you come down, you take 6 8-inch piece of material, 1 inch wide, because we want to measure pounds per linear inch, right? 1 inch wide, embed it, put some coating down, embed it, and you see all these lumps in here? This was the product he was spraying. So from the time we went inside to the time that I came out after lunch, this bucket was open, it started to congeal. We're not going to get much of a pull here. Go ahead, touch this, just grab that and tell me what you think. This is only down, what, an hour and a half? That's pretty good, huh?
It's getting better, yeah.
Hour and a half.
Yeah. It's getting better.
So I just broke your microphone? Whatever.
I think he was hooked up.
I don't know. There we go. So, but that's the proper way to do it, and you cut it into a strip. I would suggest that you know what I've typically done and what I recommend: little spray bottle, Scotch-Brite pad, water, no soap. Pick some areas that are dirty, 2 or 3 of them. If you need to do the adhesion test, clean it with a Scotch-Brite. Get a rag, dry it. You know, go do 2 or 3 of them. Come back to the first one, should be dry, and then start laying your product in. Come back the next day, you peel it off. So this is closer to a real test. I tried to cut the fabric between it. I usually try to take 2 or 3 loops and fold it. Somebody hand me that knife over there, please. Oh, thank you. Never mind.
Don't get blood on it.
I was told if I don't cut myself, I'm not doing the right job.
Ain't gonna cut butter.
Okay, so proper way is you just leave it here and pull. I gotta get my glasses on because I can't see crap here. Turn the damn thing on, right?
It ain't on.
It's not on. I know. I wonder if he's put batteries in it. See, that's why I say fold it up 2-3 times. You see that? Have that knife again? Now I gotta open it. Man, oh man, it's tough.
What happens when a wife calls a knife?
The one she uses on you is a little bit bigger though, huh? All right. I don't want to pull this because I'd really like to show a value. And I don't think Scott put batteries in this damn thing.
That's how you get away with telling people your fish are bigger than they are.
Might be a solar.
He stick him a knife.
No, it's not solar.
Does that remind you of
Didn't have my tape measure on me today.
We'd probably be getting about 5 or 6 pounds. We're just tearing right through this. Yeah, you can see, I mean,
So you can do the pull test on any surface, not just metal, but
go ahead and grab that and pull it. That's metal. You can do it on any surface, yeah. Any surface.
50% or more. What pounds of pressure are you?
Two. Scott, do you have batteries in this? I couldn't get it to work. Oh, you didn't tell me hold it. Go ahead, you do it. And then see what we get there. Just continue pulling that. Work? All right, let's try it again.
Just didn't like the operator.
Where you want me to 12 years
Yeah.
of life, play with it till you figure it out.
Let's do this here.
Playtime's over.
Well, no.
See, we already tore through it.
Yeah, but it's
All right, let's see what we get here. Now we're just pulling this. Well, you can see that's pretty good. That's really strong. And that's a coat adhesive failure there. So that's what you want to see if it was coming off the whole deck. And by the way, this wasn't cleaned. All right, so that wasn't cleaned. So Scott laid down the whole 4 inches. All you need to do is just cut the strip out and you're good to go. All right?
Brush that down.
Yep.
Yeah, I took a 4-inch chip brush. Okay. Put it on there, put the bed in, just rubbed over it.
See what we get with this one.
Scott's right pad and roughed it up a little bit before I did it, because I didn't have any water.
Oh, we already pulled that back. We're not going to get anything off of that then. Okay, so let's come on over here for a second. Well, before we do that, we're here. So this is a 3-course application. When we say 3-course, all right? So this I put down at 9 o'clock when it was raining. Now, none of this felt paper had anything on the back side. So I wanted to see that in 5 or 6 hours in today's weather, I put some underneath just for about a 3-inch area. Go ahead and lift that up for me, the corner. Don't crazy. That's pretty good adhesive. Yep, that's pretty good adhesive, right? It's got good stick to it. So this is what I'm saying in terms of using this as a repair product. It's there for you. Now, you don't need to use a notch trowel, and you can see it's already congealing, but it's not solidified yet. So 3-course application, you lay down a bed. I typically like to do an inch on either side, so if it's a 4-inch strip, I'm going 6 inches, right? Your coverage rate is about 50 linear feet per gallon. And then you put down the fabric, embed it, and you don't need to add any more material, and just make sure you fully embedded the material. So then this would be ready, if you're going to coat this, that would be ready to be coated. That's 3-course.
How long do you gotta wait before you can coat over that?
You should go the next day.
24 hours?
Yeah, the next day, yeah. You're done. If it's just a repair, you're done. You're done. That's not going to leak, yeah. Yeah. So you're good to go, and that's going to hold. I mean, if you came back tomorrow, you wouldn't be able to pull that apart, especially with the fabric on there. So, yeah.
So do you have to have the fabric for the repair, or you just come in?
I would suggest if you're doing a seam or a rip, yeah.
So any puncture you would need the fabric?
Yeah, I would suggest that. I mean, a small hole, no, but, if you've got a tear or split, yeah.
And you just said it, but just to make sure you said the 3 courses is a layer of the Duro-Shield, then the fabric, then another layer of the Duro-Shield.
No, this is a 3-course application. So I put a bed down, then I laid the fabric in,
Okay.
and then when I laid the fabric in, I just brushed it in and it bled through, and that's my 3-course application.
Layer, fabric, layer.
Right, but you make sure you got to brush it in so you completely encapsulate it, and then you're good to coat.
Awesome. That's what I want to make sure, because I want to.
Yeah. I mean, you want to put, if it was just a regular repair and I was looking at, I'm just going to repair a seam. And this is what I used to do. I mean, we'd go out there and do you had 4 lap seams that were opening up on the flashing or maybe some vertical. We'd go out and do that. I would probably put another bed over the top of it just because I want that to be the sacrifice as the sun's hitting it. Let that cook off and we still have a good solid joint. And again, you don't need a primer if you're doing a repair with this unless it's TPO. When we talk about coatings and we talk about asphaltic, we're talking about primers as a bleed blocker, not for adhesion. So this will turn, if this was an asphaltic roof, modified roof, this will start to turn gray in about a year and a half, and get a dark gray in about 2-3 years. But all that is the asphalt bleeding through. In terms of the product itself, it's still fine.
Cosmetically.
That's all it is.
John, can you talk a little bit about the colors? Fiber, or
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a good point, Michael. Thank you. So we have 3 colors, 3 standard colors. We have white, tan, and gray, which is a big improvement because if anybody remembers my earlier presentations, we had 3 colors, white, and white. Okay? So now we have 2 more colors. We can do custom colors. Custom colors are a 250-gallon minimum, and we have you go through some steps. You'll send a color chip to us, and this is what I recommend you do with your customer. Get the color chip, you send it to us, we match it, we'll send you out a dry sample as well as a wet sample. Take that color chip with the samples, apply it to the customer's roof, come back the next day, make them sign off that they've accepted that color, because we're gonna make you sign off on it. And guess what, if that roof color comes out different from what they like, sorry, okay? But at least if you've got them signed for it, it's like, hey, sorry, but this is what you said, right? So the other problem that you have with custom colors, and be aware of this, you will always get a variant from batch to batch. So if we do 250 gallons and you tell us 3 weeks later I need another 50 gallons, you're buying 250 and there's going to be a variant in that color. You can't match them exactly. It's not computer generated that way. If you need 500, we can make up to 750 gallons at a clip. So if you need more than that, then we'll take them and mix them together, and then you'll get it one consistent color. Okay? So let's go over here to the metal roof and just talk really quickly, and we're going to get you guys out of here fairly quick after this. Unless you want to roll some coatings, and that's totally up to you guys. So, metal roof preparation. Where's my buddy to the answer with the dirt? There you are. Is this acceptable?
no,
That's dirty, right? So we're not going to worry about cleaning it. Again, typically with a metal roof like this, you can just pressure wash it. Painted coated metal, including Kynar, with the silicone, you do not need a primer. Okay? Big advantage, if you've got a Kynar, 25-year-old Kynar roof, and the owner wants the aesthetics back, you don't need a primer. Okay, so, and again, matching that color might be something we can do for you. So we want to clean this, and typically all you're going to do is hit this with a pressure washer. I recommend you take a solution with TSP and water, spray it on with a Hudson sprayer, just get it on there, and then have somebody follow them up with a pressure washer, and you're going to take pretty much all the dirt off you need. And trisodium phosphate. You go to your any one of your local distributors and you ask them for TSP, they're going to give you a bucket of 40 pounds, and you mix it 4 gallons of water to like a quart of TSP. Any type of low sudsing detergent, but TSP works really well. We also have our roof cleaner that you can use, but I mean, if you don't have that and you need something, you can go there. We're not going to wash it today. So this lap joint here, we're not going to necessarily have to treat with a 3-course application, excuse me. You can caulk a fastener, go ahead. You've done metal, you've done coatings?
Yes, sir.
How do you take care of the fastener?
Sir?
Go ahead. Is it open? They puncture it? Right there. All right? All you need to do is encapsulate it, and you really, 2 things, make sure they're all tight, make sure they're a grommeted head fastener. He's really making it look pretty, man. I tell you. Don't worry, let that go. Or you can use a chip brush, right? Yo, man. Use a chip brush if you want to use the bucket. So you can use either a caulk tube or the chip brush, and you end up using a lot more material when you're using the chip brush. All right? So I will always tell you, you want to really use the caulk tube. Now, with that said, there are some guys that have done some really, really smart things with basic implements. So I have a contractor in Pennsylvania, and if anybody's interested, I'll have him get in touch with you. He's got a tube that he sticks it in the bucket. It's a 4-foot tube. He can draw up half a gallon at a clip.
Just call it
Okay, same thing. Puts a nozzle on the end with a plunger, and he goes off and does boom, 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 puts out exactly what he wants. So when we're talking about lap seams, again, how does the product feel?
Feels all right.
Okay. So this, Scott got a notch trowel. You don't need to get a notch trowel. You can use a regular flat trowel is fine. Just so somebody asked that question earlier. When you're treating your joints and your seams, this seam here, let's assume that this was sloped this way, the way it would normally be, right? The top is on the down slope. That one there, I would recommend all you do is you put a better mastic across it. So guys, why don't we put a better mastic across that? Grab that brush. Right across this joint here.
Got water on it. See it coming out over here. Here.
You don't have to do the whole thing. That's good. Just so that's as simple as it gets, right? Simple as it gets. Now over here on this joint, on your lap joint here, I would certainly recommend that we do a 3-course application here. So let's do a bed. I'm going to get some fabric for you in a bed. Who's next? Come on, guys.
Jeremy.
I've been working too hard today.
That lap right there.
That corner that's bent up. 3-course it. The corner that's bent up there, yeah, just whatever. On and off is fine.
No pressure. No pressure at all. Who was standing behind you? Love it. Love it.
Now, fairly simple. A couple things you have to worry about and think about when you're doing metal and fabric is you don't want it to tent, right? You don't want moisture between the coating and the fabric when you're doing the application here. You got to make sure it's fully embedded. That's why I say put material down and make sure it's completely covered that way before, if you're going to put anything on top of it. Because once you get a void in there, that coating will blister, okay? You're going to get condensation build up in there and the coating's going to blister, and then your customer's not going to be happy. So that's how simple it is, right? Not very difficult. This is not very time consuming once you get used to it. Again, there's some tools that you can use that can certainly speed up your time. We're not selling them yet. Hopefully in time we will. One of the things this gentleman I was talking to people about, I mentioned to you in Pennsylvania, I mentioned to Mike and Scott, to me, I don't want that tool to be a tool. I want that to be a packaging. So when you got out the sealant, you got out 4 tubes, which gives you 2 gallons, which covers 100 feet. In a tube, all you need to do is screw the nipple on, put the plunger in, and walk, rather than taking it from a bucket or drawing it from something else. So boom, 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 and then you dispose of it at the end, and it's made out of plastic and goes in the garbage, right? So that's kind of what I'm trying to look at for next year.
They have a head that screws onto a caulk tube.
Okay.
It spreads it out evenly like a tube trowel would.
Right.
That could work for the lap joints.
Yep. The other thing I've seen, guys, you know, you can get, this comes in a gallon and a 3.5 gallon bucket, so you can actually get a power caulk gun and use that, you know. We're thinking about coming out with sausage tubes and all, but I think, to me, you know, to go from a 10-ounce tube to a 28-ounce tube, okay, yeah, it's a lot more material, but if I go from 10 ounces to 64 ounces and I give you a delivery mechanism that the guy's standing upright all day long, I mean, you tell me, would you rather be standing upright doing this, or would you rather be down, bending over with a caulk gun, right? So I think from a wear and tear on your crews, that makes a big difference. Your production level goes up because you're not sitting there every hour saying, man, oh man, I got to stand up and walk around for a little bit, right? So to me, I think that's just a better overall solution for everybody involved. Any other questions, guys? I'm sure I saw a lot of you touching the coatings. You see it's, not a good day for coatings, but yet they set up pretty well. You see the mastics out there. Anytime you have a question, you get in touch with Scott. My information's readily available. I'm happy to answer any question anytime. If I answer the phone, you're not bothering me. If I don't answer the phone, I'll get back to you. Okay? But, I say that because I'll pick up the phone on a Sunday afternoon. And the first thing is, I hate to bother you. I'm like, well, if you hated to bother me, why are you calling me? But I answered the phone, so you're not bothering me, right? It's okay. If you bothered me, I wouldn't answer the phone. So, any other questions, thoughts? Did you get something out of this? If nothing else, it's a comparison for other products. Hopefully you saw that we can do things a little bit better, a little bit differently, a little different mindset. Scott's here to help you. Mike's here to help you. I'm here to help you. If you have, Duro-Last has been very good, aside from last year with COVID, but been very good allowing me to spend a lot of money going around the country, not just to do this, but on jobs. So I'm here to help you. If you have jobs that have, I can't come out for a 50-square job, but if you have a job that's significant size or some places, I was down in Florida a few times in 2019 where, we were looking at 7 and 8 buildings with contractors, and it was, probably 70, 80% of them we wouldn't coat, but that's okay. My job is to sell coatings for the company, but my job is to help you be more successful. And Scott will tell you this, and Mike will tell you this. I say it all the time. When I'm sitting down with you, it's about getting a job. It's not about getting coatings. So, I'm happy to help you any way I can with that. So, and that's it for me.